next you will find that the Annihilation of Caste and Undelivered Speech, 1936. This speech was prepared by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar when he got an invitation to become the president of the Mandal. That Mandal was Jat Paat Todak Mandal, and this was an organization or a body which was made to fight the caste system. Their main motto is to fight the social evil, which is the caste, and asked to preside the session which would be organized by this Mandal, and prepared this long speech, long paper to speak there. Why some people are high, why some people are low? There are these basic questions. If you understand, the answer is there. You can find out why, and there is one reference which is in the last point, actually. It's not in the beginning, where what beautiful answer that there is a question he put, that why caste Hindu, they follow caste system. He says caste is in the breed of Hindu social order, and why Hindus, they follow caste system. Why this is so deep in the practice of caste Hindu? Then he says Hindus are not bad. People are actually not bad, but they are very religious. Okay, so the religion itself talk about the caste. The religion itself inherit the caste, and that's why repeatedly he talks about the breaking the sanctity of Shastras. And from where this justification is coming, that caste is okay, this justification is coming from the Shastra, because I was watching a documentary, and it's there on the YouTube, that you go to Haryana village, elderly women are there, they practice caste, because if any superwoman has come in, then they discriminate it, they don't touch, they behave in a very derogatory way. And if you ask why you do this, they said we are born high and they are born low. Then who has decided that you are high and somebody is low? Then she said, no, हमारे शास्त्र कहते हैं कि हम ऊंची जात के हैं, वो नीची जात के. So the sanctity, where is the source? Ambedkar says, where is the source from that the sanctity is coming? Where is the source from there? This justification is coming that you are high and I am low. This justification is coming from the Shastra. So Ambedkar gives a beautiful answer. He says, caste Hindus are not bad, and they are not bad. They follow caste system because they are very religious. So till the time you question the religion itself, and that's why he was so against with this Manusmriti, because Manusmriti justifies caste system. He says that first of all, he says that as I belong to an untouchable community, I belong to a Shudra community, I am not suitable for your precedence, holding a post of precedence where I have to address high caste Hindus, upper caste Hindus, because what Shastra says. And then he gave the reference of Guru Ramdas. He says that Guru Ramdas, he says in his Das Bodh, the book which has been written by Ramdas is Das Bodh. He says in this Das Bodh, when he was asked the question, and Antyaja means untouchable, those who do not have any caste. So when Guru Ramdas was asked that can untouchable teach, or can an untouchable become a guru? And he denied, said low-born caste, low-born community person cannot teach the three upper caste, Brahman, Kshatriya and Vaishya. So that is why from the historical point of view, from the religious perspective, from this historical aspect, I cannot become the president of this meeting because I am a low-born, and it would have been better for the Mandal to choose any high caste person to preside the meeting. So this is what the argument in the beginning he says, but still he thanks the Mandal, and then he congratulates that the cause which the Mandal has taken, because it is very clear from the title itself, from the name of the mandal, that Jat Paat Todak Mandal. So an organization which is solely responsible to break the caste system. And this is what the name itself signifies. I'm fortunate that you have given me an opportunity. At the same time, he says that because of my this opinion, because caste, people knew it clearly. And then he says to the mandal, he is addressing to the crowd whom he is going to share his opinion. He says that for that I'm fortunate and I'm thankful for you. So in this way he's saying that you are setting a precedent to call an untouchable or a lower born Anteja to preside the meeting, which is going to address the upper caste audience. That is what he gives the reference. Further he goes and then he says that, and what is that? The mandal may be asked to explain why it has disobeyed the Shastric injunction in selection the president. According to the Shastras, the Brahmin is appointed to be the guru for the three Varnas. Varnam Brahmano Guru is a direction of the Shastras. The mandal therefore knows from whom a Hindu should take his lesson, from whom he should not. The Shastras do not permit a Hindu to accept anyone as his guru merely because he is a well-versed. The caste system, which has penetrated in the other religion as well. For example, Muslims also have a caste. In India, Christians also have caste. Sikh also have caste. There are divisions, internal divisions. But why these communities are different from Hindus? Because the moment somebody says, although there are Khatik, there are Julaha, there are Sheikh, Shia, Sunni in Muslims, there are Adharmi and Ramdasi, Jat in Sikh, and in Christians also you will find there are divisions. The moment you say somebody is a Christian, we are satisfied. Okay, we don't explore it. In Christians also, you know what, I mean, you are a upper caste or lower caste, or what is your exact caste? We don't inquire. Somebody says, I'm a Muslim. So although the person is from internal division is there, but the moment they say that I'm a Muslim, I'm Sikh, I'm Christian, we are satisfied. We don't explore inside. But this is the same situation is not associated with caste Hindu. The moment you say I'm a Hindu, it becomes very necessary for other person to know which caste, particularly which caste. So somebody says I'm a Hindu, but apart from that, the next very significant identity is which caste. But this same rule is not applicable with the Muslim, with the Christian, and with the Sikh. This is what the difference is there. And that is why our system becomes external factor, which is what Ambedkar says. Caste system becomes external factor with the other religion. For example, Christian, Muslim, and Sikh. But it is very much internal in the Hindu social order. And that is why it becomes very difficult to tolerate it. In the Hindu social order, the religion and the Shastras, they clearly answer it, that who should be the guru of three upper Varna. And no, definitely the Anteja or the casteless cannot become the guru. But how could Jat Paat Todak Mandal has asked me to preside the meeting? For that, I appreciate them, and I literally believe that they are going for the social reform. So this is what he says, that I have accepted the invitation much against my will, and also against the will of many of my fellow untouchables. I know that the Hindus are sick of me. I know that I am not a persona grata with them. Knowing all this, I have deliberately kept myself away from them. I have no desire to inflict myself upon them. I have been giving expression to my view from my own platform. This has already caused a great deal of heartburn and irritation. So this is, you will find that it is a direct and a very direct address. Fight for the country. Now, to fight for the country, they had the sole motto that the ruler who is a foreigner, make it go away from country. And that is what the main sole purpose of Congress was there. Eradicate those social evils, and the biggest social evil in the society was caste system, untouchability. So he says that, and there is a very wonderful reference he's giving, social efficiency. Actually, he's using the word social efficiency. And what is a social efficiency? Social efficiency means until and unless a society is efficient enough socially on the basis of equality, the internal structure of the society, if the internal structure of the country is not working efficiently, if there is a discrimination, if there is a fight, if there is a conflict going in a parallel in the society, then such kind of country can never grow. And then in the later part, I'm coming again and I'm comparing here. He says that the conflict and the social fight, which is internal structure, which is coming because of the difficult internal structure of the society, untouchables. And then he says that this case is not only associated with the India or Asia, that caste conflicts are happening here, fight is taking place in the internal structure of the society. It's not so. It has been there in the Europe as well. And there had been more severe conflict and fight on the basis of religion. But what was the difference between the fight which has been taken, which was taking in European internal structure of the society and Asian internal structure of the society? Right now, he's particularly talking about India. This African and slave writings, reading narratives, if you go, there also how this slavery has made human into inhuman. And there's a book he has written, Slavery and Untouchability, which is worst, which is a very categorical comparison he's giving. And what is that? Polity, education and military. PEM, you can remember it, by remembering pen. So PEM, PEM. And what is that? Polity, education and military. So any community, every community of any country, they have these basic things. They can get themselves into military, they can get education, and they can, so what is military? Military used for the physical weapon, because in military you get physical strength, you learn to fight. Gives you moral weapon. Military gives you physical weapon, education gives you moral weapon, and polity gives your address to the suffering. Panchayati Raj is the best example for that. So, for example, here Ambedkar says that these three things, polity, education and military, PEM, is very significant for any community to exist. On the basis of military, they prepare themselves for the physical fight. For education, they prepare themselves for the moral fight. And polity gives their address to their suffering. They can address their pain and suffering. And this has been an exclusive case with the untouchable, the caste system. What is that? Caste system did not allow untouchables to use even to get into military. So untouchables were never allowed to use weapon. They cannot keep any weapon. If a community cannot keep any weapon, they cannot defend themselves. Weaponless community is a defenseless community. Okay, so military is denied, and that is why they cannot prepare themselves for the physical fight. Education gives you morality, it gives you strength, it gives you argument. If you are not educated, you cannot argue, you cannot understand. See, we are able to read Manusmriti, anything, because I can read and learn. And if I am not allowed to read and write, then I cannot understand. And that's what Frederick Douglass also says, that when he was a slave, before he learned to read and write, all the slaves, after whole day work, they used to sing. And he also used to sing, but he never knew what is the meaning of those songs. When he learned to read and write, then he started understanding the meaning, and after that he stopped singing those songs, because those songs were appreciating slavery. So he said, I was better when I was uneducated, because I didn't know the meaning, I didn't know my exploitation even. But after getting this knowledge, And that is why Savitribai Phule in one, she said, knowledge is weapon. Okay. So knowledge is weapon. Knowledge gives you, education gives you knowledge, and knowledge gives you empowerment. That's why the moment Dalits, they started getting into education, the fight is becoming equal. Arguments are there. People can argue, people can justify. So that is why, and polity gives your address to your suffering, your pain, your emotions. And these three weapons were available for the European communities, even if they were proletariats, they were slaves, but it was available for them. In India, in caste system, these three things were denied. And there is a very beautiful example Ambedkar says that, you know, what is this Varna system? Varna, okay, Varna. Primarily the Varna was related to the profession. Whatever work somebody is doing is their mastery and they do it. So a carpenter is efficient in the carpentry and he does that. An ironsmith is expert in iron making and then he does it. So these are the Varna means profession. The same Varna later converted to caste system. Why? The basic principle of caste system is that there are 4 castes: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And the sole purpose of the existence of the Shudra is to serve the rest of the three upper caste. So the sole purpose of the sole existence of Shudra is to serve rest of the 3. And then Ambedkar gives the point. He says that why the relationship between the upper caste and the untouchable is a ward and a guardian. So ward is ward is small, ward need protection, ward need care. And what is the basic funda which comes out of the Varna system? That why untouchables were not allowed to keep weapon, because Kshatriya is there, he is keeping the weapon. Why the ward or the Shudra or the Anteja was not allowed to get education? Because Brahman is already there educated. You can get education whenever you want. You go and get knowledge from him. And the untouchables were not, Anteja were not allowed to do business or keep wealth because Vaishyas are there. So that is why, and if any human being which is out of knowledge, out of weapon, a self-defense, and out of education, and out of money, even if Anteja or untouchable were not allowed to accumulate wealth, they were not allowed to keep weapons, they were not allowed to get education. And that is why there was a violent and a bloody war in Europe between the haves and have-nots. I was wondering why this kind of conflict and the fight did not happen in India. Why untouchables, Anteja, did not revolt against upper caste, three upper caste. He says because they were not allowed to keep weapon, they were not trained as in a military, they were not allowed to get education, and they were not allowed to even accumulate wealth. And that is why this revolt did not take place. And the moment any opportunity which was given to untouchables, Anteja, then things changed. And education is the key. Education is the key to become a human being. If you are not educated, if you cannot read, if you cannot understand, then no revolution will come in any community. John Davey was his professor, and he had written more than 40 books. And he used the word, I tell you, this is what, in New York Teacher Union, the American Association of University Professors and New School of Social Research, social efficiency was a term that began its career in 1884 when it was introduced by British sociologist Benjamin Kidd, known for his work Social Evolution in 1884. The same term was used by his professor John Davey. Social efficiency means any community, any society, how it becomes efficient in education, efficient in skill, efficient in defense. So social efficiency is a society which is efficient on every stage. in terms of education, in terms of defending themselves, in terms of taking political rights, in terms of taking even property and land rights. And women are still weak because women don't have property rights. The day, and that is why it's a very common saying in the common society that if a woman's husband is dying, and if she's having a property, she's considered to be a half widow. But if a lady who doesn't have anything and husband died, it becomes terrible for her, because whatever community you come, whatever it is there, at least for the survival, something is required. Every single day you need something where you can survive, you can feed your children. There is a social evil which is there inherited in the internal structure of Indian society, and that is caste system. So before fighting this internal structure, before correcting the internal structure of the country, you cannot fight anything outside. One was for the political reform, another was social reform. The National Congress was accompanied by education of social conference, foundation of the social conference. While the Congress was concerned with the defining the weak points in the political organizations of the country, the social conference was engaged in removing the weak points in the social organization of Hindu society. For some time, the Congress and the conference worked as two wings of one common activity, and they held their annual session in the same pandal. But soon the two wings developed into two parties, a political reform party and a social reform party, between whom there raised a fierce controversy. The political reform party supported the National Congress and the social reform party supported the social conference. The two bodies thus became two hostile camps. The point is at issue was whether the social reform should precede political reform. For a decade and force were eventually balanced, and the battle was fought against without victory in either side. So because later on, after every session after session, the social reform party or the social reformation agenda of the Congress party was on back foot, and there one day came when it was buried completely. And what was that? The session which took place in 1892 and which was presided by W.C. Banerjee. And what speech W.C. Banerjee delivered in that? After that, the social agenda or the social reformation was completely buried in the session of 1892. And the cause which was been given, and I quote here the speech which was delivered by W.C. Banerjee in the presidential address. He says that I for one have no patience with those who say we shall not be fit for political reform until we reform our social system. I fail to see any connection between the two. Are we not fit for political reform because our widows remain unmarried and our girls are given in marriage earlier than in other countries, because our wives and daughters do not drive about with us visiting our friends, because we do not send our daughters to Oxford and Cambridge? And then there was a cheers from the audience. So what if we discriminate with our women, if we discriminate with our daughters, does it mean that we are not fit to fight for the national cause? He says that why this is so significant to fight for the cause of internal structure, or to reform the internal structure, to demolish the caste system. Why this is so significant? And these are certain very poignant facts he's putting, which I think without understanding and reading of these facts, if we move ahead, I think we would be losing our purpose. So what does he say? He says untouchable was not allowed to use the public street. If a Hindu was coming along, he should pollute the Hindu by his shadow. The untouchables was required to have a black thread either on his wrist or around his neck as a sign or a mark to prevent the Hindus from getting themselves polluted by his touch by mistake. In Pune, the capital of the Peshwa, the untouchable was required to carry strung from his waist a broom to sweep away from behind him the dust he trod on, lest a Hindu walking on the same dust should be polluted. In Pune, the untouchable was required to carry an earthen pot hung around his neck wherever he went for holding his spit lest his spit fall on the earth should pollute a Hindu who might unknowingly happen to tread on it. So this is what the condition clearly says, that how inhuman and discriminatory behavior was done towards untouchables. And that is why he says that before bringing your own community fellows, your own country fellows, equal footing as a human being, how can you fight the external agenda? This event was published in Times of India, 4th January 1928, where the high caste Hindus, Rajput Brahmin, including other Patels and Patwaris, and they passed a resolution. Because village panchayat is generally dominated by caste Hindus, upper caste Hindus, and the most of the decisions which has been taken, they would be going against untouchables and women. The caste system is a 4-story building. This 4-story building neither has windows nor has stairs. So there is no upward and a downward movement. The mobility in the caste system is not there. But and even if a Brahmin who is incapable of reading and writing, is not interested in reading and writing, and maybe he want to become a skilled worker, but he cannot. So this caste system doesn't give any upward and a downward mobility, and that is what the most unfortunate. But compared to this rigid system of 4-story building without the mobility upward and downward, this same scenario is not associated with the class structure of the European society. In European society, if a lower class person who acquire wealth and knowledge and a military training, they can go upward and they will be treated in the upward community. And that is the same scenario applicable to the other religious bodies in the Indian society. Although there is a caste system, but the caste system doesn't become sole entity, and that is why still I'm talking about 2021. You go to typical Indian villages and you will find that even if a person who is economically well off, educationally well off, but they are not given equal respect because they do not belong to the high caste. So caste system is very unfortunate and very rigid, which doesn't give any upward and downward mobility. What was that? Ultimately, the restrictions were put from the panchayat. And what were the restrictions? Let me read out. These are 1 to 8 points. Balai must not wear gold lace bordered pagdi. They must not wear dhotis with colored or fancy border. They must convey intimation of death of any Hindu to relatives of the deceased, no matter how far away these relatives may be living. In all Hindu marriages, Balai must play music before the procession and during the marriage. Balai women must not wear gold or silver ornaments. They must not wear fancy gowns or jackets. Balai women must attend all cases of confinement of Hindu women. Balai must render services without demanding remuneration and must accept whatever a Hindu is pleased to give. If the Balai do not agree to abide by these terms, they must clear out the village. And ultimately, it happened. Balais denied to accept these conditions, and they had to leave their villages. And that is why we, in the present scenario, event happened in Chakwara. There are so many events where complete villages were complete community, the whole community in the village were burnt because they denied to accept the restrictions put by upper caste. And Balais refused to comply these Hindu elements, and ultimately they were forced to leave their village, their ancestor livelihood. So, and there is another example, this event which happened in Kavita, Gujarat. In this Kavita, actually what happened, the untouchable, they sending their children to the school maintained by the government, and they demanded their children to be, it was a civic right, and they wanted their children to get education in the state-run school. But the upper caste in the Gujarat, they denied, and there was a lot of conflict. So November 1930. So these were discriminatory practices which untouchables has to go. And then again he gives the very another event which happened in 1st April 1936 in Jaipur, Chakwara. In Jaipur, Chakwara, what happened? The untouchable of the Chakwara, who had returned from the pilgrimage, had arranged to give a dinner to his fellow untouchables of the village. So they served ghee and butter, and when this food was prepared, the upper caste of the Chakwara, they came and they turned all the food and they spoiled everything, and ultimately there was a lot of conflict. And reason was that untouchables and Dalits, they cannot use ghee in the problem existing. Then what are the solutions? And that's why he gives a very wonderful answer. The answer is that there is only two ways through which the caste system can be abolished, completely annihilated, and that caste system, that is either interdining and intermarriage. So the interdining also, he gives a lot of other examples. Interdining is also not going to solve the problem. The only thing which can solve the problem, that is intermarriages, because the fusion of the blood, the fusion of the blood will ultimately break this clear demarcation of upper caste and lower caste. And that is why when the blood is mixed, when the children are produced out of two communities, we cannot say that this is upper caste, because the child is a mixture of both the community, both the parents.